Hello and welcome to some more Star Citizen. We've had yet more dev responses from CIG's Chad McKinney. The man is a legend, and we're going to summarise the questions and look at the answers that Chad gave on Star Citizen's engine, general game mechanics, development, persistence, orbiting planets, iCache and more. This is a slightly more technical episode this time as well. I'll just ask the question and go straight into my Chad voice. Will we have dead body persistence in the future? I've already mentioned this elsewhere, but we've already have a system for cleaning up entities that age out, and dead bodies will be no different. This is a system that will see more development in the future to deal with the increased challenges introduced by global persistence and server meshing, but fundamentally the idea is that certain entities won't necessarily last forever in all places, depending on the kind of area. So, for example, you wouldn't expect a dead body to just sit around in the streets of a busy city. At some point, someone is going to get that thing cleared up. But on the other hand, you may expect to see a dead body to stay around for a long time in some random derelict with very low traffic. Any more info on player inventory? ? There will be some improvements to player inventory and management. I don't want to go into the details yet, as not everything is finalised, but along with physicalised inventory, we also want to improve how you view and interact with said inventory. Are you planning to co-locate iCache and the corresponding game service virtual machines on the same physical hardware rack? We are using something we call StarHash, which is kind of geohash formatted specifically for our 64-bit scale solar systems. These will allow for spatially querying a service called, you guessed it, StarHash service, which allows us to query data quickly in certain areas, with the main use case being server streaming. We've had a version of this running as an internal background job since the initial server streaming implementation went in, but now it will be moved out into its own set of services so that the server nodes can mutually query on this data set. Are there any improvements planned towards the functionality of the shopping kiosks in the persistent universe? There are plans to improve the shopping kiosk UI, but the question is more about exactly when that work will get scheduled rather than if, given that the design work itself hasn't been finished, and generally we try to ensure the more detailed parts of the design are done closely in proximity to implementation. I don't want to get into the specific details on exactly those changes will look like. Do any of the devs use machine and deep learning for any tech in Star Citizen? We don't use any in the runtime game right now, though there have been some discussions about various possibilities in all kinds of domains. The tricky bit with machine learning is that it is inherently probabilistic, so you have to consider exactly what you're wanting to get out of said systems and how good your model is going to perform in real-time situations. For the most part, in games you can easily throw together some rough heuristics for, say, an AI and get decently good enough behaviour that the player can be convinced of some higher level thinking. Fear, often cited here as an example, but getting some model to behave like this would be an entirely different ballgame. I think there's definitely some interesting territory here, but it would require R&D to investigate. Outside of the game itself, we are starting to incorporate some AI into other aspects of our tooling, such as analytics, which for anyone keeping up with that field should not be entirely surprising. Will we see various insignia on player characters for different guilds and reputations, patches, all that sort of stuff, showing like, I'm level 3 with the Bounty Hunter Guild. We are working on the new reputation system, which will, at least at the data level, allow us to track various reputation stats, including ranks, against entities and organizations. We will be looking to find various ways to communicate these reputation levels and ranks in lore and in the interactions with the game world. I am not necessarily saying that armor customization will be included in that. First, we'd need a whole armor customization system, which doesn't exist yet, but things along these lines are certainly being considered. How bleeding edge is Cloud Imperium, or game dev in general, with Star Citizen in picking up new research? Depending on the domain, we do like to keep up with various interesting developments coming out of more formal research groups. I think that I've seen this cool looking cloth on dragons and paper going around, but very often there will be discussions on all kinds of new developments in robotics like improved jerk calculations to whatever the hot new paper out on SIGGRAPH that talks about damage and deformation in meat. Sometimes we'll actually move into incorporate these ideas if they are simple, but oftentimes the context of these papers is very far removed from the realities of a real-time game, so it's more of an inspiration. Other things to consider are that another word for bleeding edge is unproven, and by now the games industry has fairly well proven out how to make a 3D game, and now everyone is pushing to see where to take risks or find novel improvements. But in many ways, engines are not all different from the days of Quake, and many engines, including some modern ones, are even direct descendants of the Quake codebase. And he actually shows the Quake family tree of games, which obviously led to Half-Life and Half-Life 2 and the Source engine and all that sort of jazz. Oh, some beautiful stuff. Those are the days of computer games. We need to move past the traditional projection, rasterization methods. I think ray tracing and sign distance fields are the future. So there were questions on planetary orbit mechanics and blockers to getting the tech in-game, almost as follow-ups from Chad's previous answers on that topic. To be clear, the navigation I mentioned regarding orbiting is only one of many that surface when orbits are turned on, so it's not the real blocker. Reality is that there are so many different systems impacted that we haven't yet prioritized it to a point that we've had a concerted effort across teams to address these various issues. So we will see orbiting planets and moons at some point, but they're going to be working on it in the future. When traveling via quantum to a moving planet, the design direction at the moment is to always jump to where the planet is ending up, not where it was before you jump, in order to avoid needing to do any kind of fix-up secondary jump. I think for a gameplay pattern perspective, it could get very frustrating to have to make a second jump every time you wanted to go somewhere just to get more aligned with the target. Especially when you would expect at the point in the future you should be able to route a path to where you'll need to be within a reasonable distance of the planet, accounting for travel time. One thing to note here is that object containers don't move. In fact, they are completely static. They may be spawned in a zone that moves, like a planet, and their child contents may be movable, say like some crates, but the object containers themselves are fixed in zone space, though they may move in world space if their zone moves. So the object containers will travel with the planets because they are the object container, and that moves through world space, as it were. What programming language was used to create Star Citizen? The game engine is almost entirely C++ with a bit of assembly, and in fact we removed Lua, so not even game scripting is done in Lua anymore. To improve iteration time, we use something called Recode that allows us to hot swap code changes at runtime, which is much faster than restarting the whole game, while allowing us to maintain the high performance benefits of writing native code. Now, the designers do script in visual scripting language called Subsumption for AI behaviors and mission logic, but that is a very small amount of code that is executed during runtime. Elsewhere, we use C# and Python for tooling, and C++ and C#, Ooze, and TypeScript for various backend services. Do you have any plans on hiring more people to go and fix the backlog of bugs? Last I checked, we have like 100 open jobs, so yes, we are looking to expand significantly. Now, that said, we do want to maintain our standards, and I can at least speak for the engineering department that even though we are trying to expand, we don't want to let code quality suffer in that endeavor, so it will take time to fill these roles. Also, another thing to understand is that even with an expanded workforce, their focus likely won't just be on bug fixing, as it can be counterproductive to fix bugs in game systems. They still have designs in flux. Additionally, we have some very large pending technical endeavors like iCache and global persistence and server meshing still in development that will have an impact on the current and in development systems. For now, we have to balance bug fixing and feature development. As we get closer to a beta, then we can switch to focusing largely on stabilization and performance. There was a little follow-up. Are you willing to have programmers from Australia? For the most part, we look for people who can work on site, as game dev is an incredibly collaborative endeavor. On occasion, we will do remote but this is often temporary until the new employee can move. Since we are still planning on moving back into the site studios for the most part, we are still mainly looking at applicants who are willing to move back to work on site at one of our locations. And that's it for today from Chad. But what do you think? What questions would you like to be answered by Chad, Cloud Imperium, and their devs? Whatever your thoughts, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. Each month we have a ship giveaway. For November, we are giving away a Mercury Star Runner again. This highly anticipated multi-role ship is going to be great for small to medium-sized crews that want to do a bit of everything, whether that be cargo running, data running, missions, combat, smuggling, all that sort of jazz. And it's going to be in-game and flyable very soon. All you've got to do to be in for a chance of winning one is comment on any of my videos made during October, including this one. More details down below. What am I shilling for today, I hear you ask? Do you hate it when people steal all of your money and your house over the internet? I know I do. NordVPN may have been invented by wizards to help protect your personal data from the prying eyes of the dark web, a sinister cabal of technomancers that grow in power the more they know about your browsing habits. The true story of NordVPN's origins are unknown and lost to the ages, and without using facts, no one really knows how it provides more accessibility to otherwise censored websites or a safer security experience for all that use it. All I know is that it does, and that when you sign up to it, the power level of my bank account grows, and I use it, and maybe you should too.